What's up, YouTube? So I'm here with Trey, and we're going to do a deck tech for the Boros Feather deck that he played tonight. So we've got the list pulled up on the side of the screen here. We're going to go through and cycle through all the cards and the quantities, and Trey's going to talk about them, and then we're going to go through a sideboard plan for the deck too. So first of all, we have got 4 Adanto Vanguards.
Yeah, so Adanto Vanguard is kind of one of your best Game 1 creatures against most decks. It's a really versatile threat. You can give it indestructible, and it's a pretty heavy hitter. It's actually a card you side out in a lot of matchups just because there's a lot of good removal running around for it right now. And then
we have 4 Dreadhorde Arcanist. I have to say something here.
Oh, sure. This is going to be one of your staple cards in the deck. Dreadhorde Arcanist allows you to recur your spells. It allows you to become really evasive with your threats. And it has a really neat interaction with another card we'll get to in a second here.
Yeah. So then we have 10th District Legionnaire.
Yeah, this is your main beater in the deck. This is a card that gets rapidly out of control since all of your spells in the deck target something. 10th District will get bigger than that, and because it allows you to scry, it allows you to have better card selection and filter away unnecessary lands or find that extra land you need.
Then we have 4 Feather the Redeemed. So this is the namesake card in the deck.
Yeah, so Feather is going to be your main engine. Any spell you cast allows you to exile it, and then at the beginning of the next sunset, bring it back. The unique interaction you have with Dreadhorde Arcanist is that if the spell is in the graveyard and you cast it with Dreadhorde Arcanist and you have a Feather on the battlefield, you can go ahead and exile the card to Feather and instead bring it back to your hand. So spells in your graveyard aren't necessarily always going to be in there.
And that satisfies the Dreadhorde Arcanist because it does go to the exile zone, correct?
So you actually have 2 different replacement effects. And when you have 2 different replacement effects, you get to choose what one you want to apply.
It doesn't actually care where it goes to.
Yep.
In that instance. Okay, then we have 3 Gideon Blackblades.
Yeah, so Gideon is an interesting card in the deck. It's more of a powerhouse beater and your heavy removal for mid to late game. You will a lot of times take him up to 6 loyalty and then minus him to exile a large threat your opponent has. Other than that, he's a 4/4 beater, which is really, really good for the deck as well.
Okay. And then we're going on to spells now. So we've got 4 Defiant Strikes.
Yeah, this is kind of one of your just basic bread and butter spells. It's a cantrip, draws you a card, and it pumps up your creatures a little bit. The most important part, though, is that it says draw a card. And being able to cast that with Dreadhorde Arcanist or a Feather to
recasting
draw
over and over and over. Let's just keep drawing.
Yep.
I think we saw a couple, it might not have been you on camera, because there's a few other people playing Feather, but we saw people that had too many cards in their hand because they ended up casting this multiple times.
This is a card that if you are able to cast it with a Feather out, you're going to have so many cards in your hand that you're going to overwhelm any other deck that's really out there.
Alright, then we got 4 Gods Willing.
Yeah, this is the newest card that got introduced to the deck, and this is what really made the deck a breakthrough deck for a lot of people and for competitive Magic. Being able to give your creatures protection from colors is incredibly fantastic in a format that has a lot of targeted removal. Now that you have a lot of Esper decks running around, or you have Dinosaur decks or Mono Red that's playing straight target spells, being able to completely negate those or get through a large board stall is also really effective.
Yeah, I think the main thing too is being able to give it protection from X color and then actually attack, and they can't block it. So we have a lot of actually monocolored decks, I think.
Yep.
Which is really funny because we're in Ravnica where everything should be 2 colors.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have 2 Moment of Heroisms.
Yeah, so this is one of the newer flex cards that we've been experimenting with. It's really, really handy in your mono red and aggressive matchups. If you're trying to race another deck, this is a card that pulls you immensely ahead. You just play it on a Legionnaire or a Feather, and having that 5 to 8 life point swing is incredibly helpful in those matchups.
Then we've got 4 Reckless Rage. This is basically your removal in the deck, correct?
Yeah, this is your main removal spell. All of your creatures in the deck are going to have 3 toughness, or in 10th District Legionnaire's case, it'll become a 3 power or toughness creature before you resolve the spell.
Yeah, so you cast this, and if you have to target the Legionnaire with it, that trigger is going to resolve before the Reckless Rage. So it would be a 3/3, and then it would have 2 points of damage dealt to it.
Correct, yep. And a lot of your good threats in the format are going to have 4 toughness or less, so this is an insanely good removal spell for them.
And it's only 1 red. And then we have 1 Sheltering Light.
Yep, so Sheltering Light is going to be one of those additional little flex cards. You're going to find yourself siding it out a lot. But being able to give a creature indestructible is very handy in your matchups like Esper, where they're going to have Kaya's Wraths. Any deck that has Wrath effects is
Protect your Feather.
Very, very good, yeah. So being able to give it indestructible is a good thing to be able able to do.
And I suppose the Scry one is relevant too.
Yeah.
Then we have 2 Gird for Battle.
Yeah, so Grip for Battle is actually one of my newest favorite cards I've been playing with in the deck. It gives you a lot of burst power out of the deck. So you'll have a lot of starts where you'll go turn 2 Arcanist, turn 3 play a Legionnaire, and then cast a Gird for Battle.
And then recast a Gird for Battle.
Yeah, you recast it with attacking with Arcanist and you're hitting your opponent for 9 damage, which is an insanely fast clock for a deck like this.
Now this was a card that I think the first week you played it, you had 1 in the list, and you had 2 Sheltering Light, and you switched 1.
Yeah, Gird for Battle's has
overperformed.
Yeah, it's overperformed. Yeah. It's impressed me enough that I want to play a second copy in the list. I wouldn't want to go above that, as it is a sorcery, and sorcery speed in the deck is a little awkward, but it's definitely good enough to have a second copy.
And then we have 2 Riles.
Yeah, so this is another little flex card. You find yourself citing it out a lot, but it also says draw a card, which is really important. And more importantly, it does give trample. And one thing that Legionnaire lacks is having trample. It has haste, it can get really big, but it can't force through damage if your opponent can create a lot of chump blockers. So being able to give it trample, force through a large portion of damage, or force them to make suboptimal blocks is really effective.
And then you get to draw extra cards,
Yep.
so refill your hand. And then we'll go over the mana base really quick. It's pretty typical for a Boros deck. You've got 3 basic mountains. I use the beta art. And 7 plains. Obviously, you're running Feathers double white.
Yep.
And is there other double white spells?
You have Gideon as well as a double white spell.
Yep. So you do want to have more plains than mountains. And then you've just got 4 Sacred Foundries, 4 Temple of Triumph, which obviously get the Scry, which is good, and then it's a dual land. And they have Clifftop Retreats. And then we'll move on. Do you want to say anything about the lands?
So
really.
One thing that I've really noticed with the deck is that you have a lot of hands where you mulligan 1 or 2 lander hands. I've considered pushing this up to a 23 land deck. I don't think it's something I'm going to do just because of the sheer amount of card selection that you have in it.
Yeah, you have a lot of draws and a lot of scries.
Yep.
So we're going on the sideboard. These are going to be your 15 card sideboard cards. So there's 4 Tecatli Honor Guards.
Yeah, this card is an absolute
We'll talk
house.
about the actual sideboarding
Yeah.
once we get to that section. So we're really just going to make some quick comments and go through these. Obviously, he has an ability that lets ATB triggers not happen.
Yep.
We've got 2 Fries. We've got 3 Law Rune Enforcers, 2 Dovin Hand of Controls, 2 Saheeli Sublime Artificers, and then 2 Deafening Clarions. So we're going to move on to the sideboard guide, which we typed up here. So I guess, do you want to just go through these?
Yeah, I can go through these. Before we begin, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Connor Mullally.
Oh, what is this?
He's one of the main guys that pioneered a large chunk of the sideboard guide. I've made some few tweaks here as I changed the list around, but he's the main one that really kind of threw this list together, and a fantastic player. But so for mono red aggro, you're taking out your Adanto Vanguards, you're taking out your Riles. You don't really need trample in this matchup, and Vanguard is just really bad in the face of 4 Chain Whirlers. You don't want to be paying 4 life.
You don't want to spend the life on it, and it's not going to attack through any of their creatures. So
yeah, so we're going to be bringing in 4 Tecatli Honor Guards and 2 Deafening Clarions. Honor Guards are really good at stopping that Chain Whirler effect, which can be pretty good against you. Clarions are really good at sweeping the board, and because your creatures are generally going to be larger than that, you can give them lifelink as well, so it's really handy to be able to have those huge points of life swing there. For mono white aggro, again, we're taking out the Adanto Vanguards, we're taking out the Riles, we're taking out a Gideon and a Sheltering Light. We don't really care about Indestructible in this matchup. A lot of all their effects are going to be exiling, so they're going to have effects that exile our creatures. God's Willing is just significantly better there. Bring in the Honor Guards, bring in the Clarions, bring in the Fries. Clarion is very, very good against this matchup, especially if they leave in their Honor Guards, because for each one they have to pay 4 life, obviously. And then Honor Guard is really good for stopping like a Venerated Loxodon.
I think you said Honor Guard instead of Vanguard.
Oh, I did say that.
Yeah,
right.
So that's if they leave in their Vanguards, they're going to have to pay to keep them.
Yep. And then we bring in the Fries. It hits any white creature in their deck, and then if they have opposing Gideons or Johnnies, you can take them down as well. Mono blue aggro, again, kind of a similar board plan, similar to mono white. We're taking out a couple Vanguards, a Gideon, our Riles, and a Sheltering Light. Bringing in the Dovin Hand of Controls. So this is a really neat iteration of the deck. Having your sideboard be configured to become more of a mid-range controlling deck is really effective against a lot of these plans. Dovin's really good at making your mono blue opponents have to pay more for all their spells, which they are very reliant on. Fry's really good for hitting all their creatures still, and then Deafening Clarion again is really good sweeper because blue still does play a lot of sweepers, and since they've moved away from playing Tempest Djinn, it generally hits almost everything they play.
Now with the Dovin, one thing to note is that they might actually, like, you can bait out the protection spells with it. So if you're going to fog one of their creatures, like the one with the, what's the enchantment? Draw card. Curious Obsession. Yeah, so like if you fog the one with Curious Session, you could potentially draw out a protection spell, and that's worth it.
Yeah, something to note is with a lot of these matchups, you're not necessarily going to be minusing these Planeswalkers a lot. Dovin and Saheeli tend to just sit at their starting loyalty a lot of the time, and you're not going to really touch them. They're just there for their static abilities. Moving on to Simic Nexus, so they don't have a lot of ways to interact with us, and we want to have ways to interact with them. So we're going to take out 3 Gods Willing, a Sheltering Light, and both of our Ryls to bring in our Fries, both Saheelis and both Dovins. Saheeli is kind of an odd choice here, but it allows us to race a lot faster. Sticking a Saheeli out means we can just unleash a flurry of spells and just create a bunch of servos, and then being able to turn those servos into other 10th District Legionnaires or Dreadhorde Arcanists means that we can keep getting more value out of them. And then we bring the Fries in because their sideboard plan, Teferi, Tameo, and if they bring in like Hydroid Crisis or something like that, it's very good with dealing their post-board threats.
And then we got one more page of sideboard plans.
Yep, so one of the newest decks, Temur Elementals, they are pretty bad against this post-board. So we're taking out Sheltering Light, our Danto Vanguards, they have Flame Sweeps, it's pretty bad for us, 2 Ryls, and we're sighting in both our Clarions and all 4 of our Honor Guards. Again, Honor Guard is just the house here. It stops Risen Reef. It stops all the Cavaliers. It stops everything they're trying to do. They have to devote all of their resources to removing that card. Otherwise, they're just going to lose to it. Warsaw Vampires, again...
We haven't seen anyone play that here.
I think we had one person that was on it tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you went to the IQ on Sunday last week.
Yes.
Did you face vampires there?
There were 0 Vampires players.
Okay. So this isn't really a huge part of the meta, but I guess we have the sideboard plan for it.
Yeah. So we have our 4 Vanguards again coming out. They don't match up against another aggressive deck very well. A Ryle and our Sheltering Light come out. Again, a lot of the removal is going to be Exile-based. Bringing in our Fries, both of our Clarions, and our Saheelis. Vampires likes to go pretty wide by making a lot of tokens. Saheeli helps us race that. Deafening Clarion keeps the board clear. And then Fries is good at hitting their larger threats. So
Mirror match.
Boros Feather. So we take out 2 Gideons and we take out 2 Vanguards. They're just not going to be very good in the trades that we want to be making. You want to bring in 2 Fries because you're going to hit almost every creature in the deck except Arcanist, including the opposing Planeswalkers, which is really relevant. You can hit an opposing Dovin if someone brings it in because we're bringing in our own Dovins. Making the opponent's cards and spells cost 1 extra mana more is very, very...
when your cantrips cost 2 instead of 1, turns out you can cast half of them.
Yeah.
Or half as many. Yeah. Half as many, I should say.
It's pretty bad. So Dovin is a very, very good card to have in the mirror. So Esper Hero, this is one of the biggest decks that we've been seeing around. We've been seeing a bunch of players here playing it as well. What we want to be doing is taking out our Moments of Heroism, our Ryls, a Gird for Battle, and a Sheltering Light. These cards really just don't do anything conducive to our plan. Moments slow, Ryle, we don't really need Trample, and then Gird and Sheltering Light aren't super effective. Their spells and remove are mostly going to be either bouncing or it's going to be board wipes for most of our creatures. So we're bringing in 2 Fries because it hits all of the Teferis, which we absolutely need to have.
All 8 of them.
Yep. 2 Saheelis because those can go very wide very quickly, and 2 Dovin. So we're switching to a more controlling board style. We're going to try to just outpace them on that. Something to be aware of playing this match is always be aware of Teferi Time Raveler. He makes it very awkward to cast God's Willing or to protect your creatures.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you cannot cast things from your graveyard with Arcanist.
Correct. Yeah.
So
you can't
it
actually
shuts down instance.
do anything.
Yeah. I guess the comment on Saheeli is that it keeps up with creating tokens against the hero.
Yeah, so it keeps up with taking those, and then again, you'll find that just making an extra Arcanist to attack with is very, very effective in this matchup.
Gives you an extra spell. And then you did face dinosaurs. Did you lose to dinosaurs at the IQ?
I beat one, lost to another.
Okay. And you did make some changes in lieu of that because you weren't expecting dinosaurs to be a real deck.
Yeah, so with the dawning of Core 2020, there have been a few red, green, and Gen Dinosaur decks running around. I wasn't too concerned about them until I ran into them. And the problem is that they race us just as well and just as fast. They hit significantly harder too, which is an issue. So in lieu of that, I've decided to add a couple of cards to the sideboard, and we see them in the form of Law Rune Enforcer.
Okay.
This is a really, really good card to have in this matchup because it's effective at taking out their threats, so they can't attack with their Galta. Rotting Registrar can't get through because it doesn't have Trample. So we're going to be taking out 3 Gideons, 2 Moments of Heroism. We don't want to be slow. We don't want to take our time in this matchup. Put in those 3 Long Rune Forces, put in the 2 Saheelis, and you're going to be able to find that you're going to be able to outpace them just fine. The biggest threat with this matchup is that you can just die out of nowhere to a Thud, and we really want to avoid that.
The Rotting Registrar can still FUD you. It just can't attack.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so you've played this for 2 FNMs and an IQ, correct?
Yep, I've been doing some testing with it on Arena as well. Going forward, I think this is one of the better decks for the meta. It hits most of the check marks of what you want from a really good deck. It's aggressive, it's fast, and it can spin on its heels to create diverse sideboard games. And because of the uniqueness of our sideboard cards, we're covered for most of the decks that are going to be in the meta that you can expect for standard.
Now, did we have a sideboard plan for Scape Shift?
So we don't
want to talk about that because that,
yeah.
you know, LSV won what Magic Fest Denver with Scape Shift list that was very similar to Garrison's. So that's kind of put the deck on the map now.
Yep.
So do you have a plan for that we didn't cover?
Yeah, so for Scape Shift, because most of their threat is going to come in the form of zombies, we're going to be taking out Gideons, we're going to be taking out Moment of Heroism. So it's going to look very similar to our Dinosaur siding out.
Okay.
Bringing in, we're going to bring in both of our Deafening Clarions, we're going to bring in 4 Tocatliana Guards, you'll probably cut a Ryle or 2 here as well. Be able to stop Elvish Rejuvenator is very effective against them because their game plan is also incredibly fast, and be able to slow them down by just a turn or 2 is very, very bad for them.
Okay. Any changes? I mean, you're just happy with the 75 because you've been testing it quite a bit, right?
Yeah, so I've been pretty happy with the 75.
So you go back to the list here.
Yeah, one of the things that I might start testing around with a little bit is looking into maybe playing around with a couple of ley lines here and there if people keep playing Esper.
Okay.
The reason with it being is if people continuously want to bring in hand disruption spells, it's not the worst.
So we're talking Sanctity, Leyline of Sanctity.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess that's all we really need to talk to about the deck. So thanks for watching the video. I gotta do it right. You gotta like the video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and apparently there's a notification button you have to hit. So do all that. Thanks for watching.
Like, subscribe, comment.
Like, subscribe, comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter.
Oh, and we made it Twitter.